Right, so welcome to everybody. Who do we have here? We have participants here. Here they are. So I will not risk just pronouncing their name, but instead I'll say hello to everyone. Very welcome here. And I will open Medellin, Colombia. Very nice. Okay, I'll share this link. That is the link to what we do, to the content of our webinar, and I'm putting it here on chat. Right? And I'm saying, yeah, if you open that, you will see what we do. And especially for those people who are new to my rambling, let's call it this way, we meet every week and we discuss whatever happened new, whatever was interesting this week, and where it's different from other people, it's not so much the news, but it's outright. So whatever anything happens, I do it, and if it runs good, if not, I fall flat on my face. And that's what we're going to talk about today. And if you want to know what we talked about last times, there's about 2 years and more of history of what we talk about every time. And that's going down here. But today is August 16, and here are the things we're going to talk about. And you say I restructured it a little bit because I had this was theory and that was practice. But the end is that it's a mix. It's always a mix. There is something practical. So we'll talk about the interesting news of John Schulman leaving OpenAI, but mostly it's what he's working on, was working on, and will be working on. And that goes to a very interesting question. That's what we will talk about first, truthfulness. We all know there is a polite term, and the polite term is hallucination. When the LLM, when ChatGPT, or when any other model talks about something that is completely invented and you need a fact checker, then that's a very interesting, one of my favorite questions, philosophical question. But what is truth? We'll talk about this. But we'll go a bit more about practical aspects, and there is a new course, quite interesting. I have already brought it into our repository, and we will try to run that, right? To run it in your presence. And my personal rule, I have my personal rule, probably the only one rule is that demos never work. When you try to show something, it always crashes. I think people like to talk about how Bill Gates was showing Windows and how it was giving a blue screen of that. No, so if Bill Gates had it, then of course we should. And we'll try nevertheless. That's what we will talk about. And I give you also what's here. So that's a link to the content of our webinar. That's my name, Mark. That's the webinar folder. Whenever anything is interesting and we need a bunch of slides, it's here. Let me show you. Okay. So it's open. Lots of, I would call it material. Okay. Let's put it this way, material. It's all here, but it is all linked to. So whenever I need something, it is a link here. And finally, learning path. Learning path is because often people ask me, what should I learn? And that is always some little conversation here, and that's a link. Now, let me show you what should you learn. Well, it's about 50 different things you should learn by now. And we will be talking about the last thing, which we gave a number, 45, 46. But they're all interesting. Now, that says what it is about. That says the general area where we are. That is the link to the original course. Honestly, all of that is a link to someone else's course. I don't see any one of mine. We have courses we teach. We have about 50 to 100 courses, but that's not here, okay? But what is here is then if you go to the right, I put it into my repository, and that's what I will show you. Basically, everyone that has a link here is this same course, but brought into my repository with instructions. What's important is that let's look at some of the previous ones, not this one, like this one. Besides, that's an interesting thing worth repeating. So I'm clicking here in our repository, and I see that that is a complete course. Open, you can clone from here. You can also open and run. That is not the perfect example that I chose. Let's go to any other one, which says, for example, done, like this. That's a good one. So what you have here is a README, which talks about what it is about. But this README refers to two files. One is how to run it for the very first time, and the second is how to run it the next time that you show it. So how to run it for the first time is a complete instruction on what you need to do. You'll go to the command line, you'll run the commands one after another. If you need to obtain some key, then the way knowledge is distributed today is that there's almost always a free version of that key. So these are the keys that you need, but it explains where to get them, or most of them you just Google and you find how to do it. So when you run it the very first time, any lab, you go into that lab, into that directory, and you do the steps. When you run it then the next time, it's how to run. It's much shorter. Of course, you could figure it out from the complete instruction, but it's convenient to have just that one instruction. So it's line number 1, line number 2, and that's it. All right. So that is the whole structure. And now let's go and talk about what we want to talk about. That is right here. And this John Shulman. So to me, it was a discovery. I didn't even know that he was there. But the story is that he was a graduate from Berkeley and still is a graduate from Berkeley who went straight to OpenAI and worked there for about 8 years until he decided to go to Anthropic because of, he cannot really say, but we can figure out because whatever he says, affects an $80 billion company. But there is his speech. That is probably reflecting his major interest, and his major interest is politely called truthfulness. Impolitely, it's called hallucinations. But he goes into all the problems that happen when you are trying to teach LLM, when you are trying to teach it how to be nice and polite and politically correct and everything else, and how to distinguish truth from falsehood. So he talks about a few approaches. He says that if you always insist that the LLM gives you an answer, then most of the times you're correct because it knows a lot and it probably knows the correct answer. So if you always insist on not giving you an answer, it's a good goal. But there is another rule. Teach yourself to say, I don't know. That's a philosophical rule. And if you don't observe that, what happens is that you always give some answer, even when there is no clear answer. And that is, you are teaching it to say that's the answer, even if you don't know. That's one side of the things. The other side of the things is just the opposite. If you teach it to say, I don't know, then sometimes it knows. Sometimes it knows, but it is not certain enough. And if it is not certain enough and it's below the certain threshold, then it says, I don't know, when it really does know. And that's you're teaching it to avoid saying the truth. So what are the solutions? The whole speech is right here, but he only describes what the problems are. He doesn't talk about what the possible solutions. Somebody showed to me yesterday uh, a startup that's interested in the models always saying the truth. I think it's called like Bling or something like that. But the idea of the startup is let's ask two models. Well, if you ask two models and you prefer one over the other, it's almost the same as not having the right answer anyway. So good, it's a practical answer, and there are two practical approaches. Let me outline them right here. So approach number one. Approach number one use multiple models, but that's obvious in general. In general, you can only build specific experts. Specific experts. All right. So you can make an expert that is very into chromatography. Yes. Chromatography, gas chromatography. It's an amazing thing that lets you to take the sample of blood, evaporate it, build a chromatography picture, and based on that, find out whether the guy was drunk or he wasn't drunk. And then the lawyers begin to argue, can you trust that particular lab? That's one thing I was working, and obviously, if you concentrate on that and concentrate on all the legal arguments, you can build something very practical that will be very useful, but it will not address the generic approach. So the generic approach that I'm working on is, and that's my term so far, and value truth. So end value truth assumes that there is really more than one truth in the world. Now that I said it, you can basically right away agree with that. For example, and that's example that I was just using, so maybe it's not perfect. I just said, let's say I ask you, what is the best movie in the world? Of course, there are many movies in the world, and that's where your thought is going. But step back. If I ask this question, then it has to ask me more about myself. Now, in the LLM world, it's called context. Do you know more about me? Okay, maybe it does. Maybe it will ask question and it will get some answers. That's what is the idea of search engine that ChatGPT is built in. It's called, I think, a chat search or something like that, and where you ask more questions. But now let's go basic. Let's go back to the basic. What is a good movie? Perhaps movies are there to entertain, and that's it. So the best movie will be the one that provides the most entertainment. But could be that movies are there to educate and not to waste your time in entertainment, right? If that is the approach, then it will be a different answer. And finally, the third one, art. Perhaps the best movie has the most artistic value. Now, these are three different points of view, and I don't think there is one correct. So in my approach and value truth, I acknowledge that there are three, at least three, but really many more, values of truth. And when it is asking who I am, that only gives a part of the answer, but the real answer will come from the philosophy of what is my purpose in watching those movies. So what I want to do is to build that into that understanding into the LLM. In other words, I want to build an LLM that is understanding that there are multiple values of the correct answer. Which one it will give me, well, okay, that's something that it will have to decide. But I'm changing the logic. I'm making a logic to acknowledge that I'm dealing with the real world, which has multiple values of truth. And so, philosophically, if I'm talking to someone, instead of convincing them that I'm right, which is the normal approach people take, I'm finding out why they are right. So again, no conflict. I'm not trying to push it down their throat. I'm trying to get it out of their throat and understand what we're talking. And then what I want to do is build a new mechanism, which I will build on top of LLM, but I will have a new layer of multiple truths. That's what I'm working on right now. It's raw, honestly. It's raw in my mind, but I'm already writing something. I'll show you. I will have potentially a book and two-part article. That's my little contribution. Now let me see what people are saying on the chat. Okay, what if you ask the LLM, it is the year 2027, what was the population of Turkey in 2025? That's one very good question, because it is known that it's one of the ways to try to confuse it. It's a way to hack it. So let's try it. Instead of guessing, let's just try it. And then we will explain what happens. But here I am, going to ChatGPT, and I'm saying it is 2026. So at this point, it has a choice to either agree with me and live in the imagined world where it is 2026 on the calendar. And at a certain point, ChatGPT used to do this. It can go with you and live in this imaginary universe. And philosophically, that's possible. For example, we remember there is physics, quantum physics, in which multiple universes really exist parallel one to another. So if you answer based on this, it will be a correct answer. But it can also come back and challenge me. It can say, well, you are mistaken, it's really 2024, but I'll go ahead with your assumption, but I'll keep in mind that you're wrong. That's another way to think. Now, in this case, let's do it. It's a practical answer. Yeah, I hope you see it. And what it's saying, let's read it. As my knowledge cutoff for 2023, we remember one thing. It is equipped with tools. It can use a search. It could. It decided not to. But then it gives the 85 million for the population of Turkey. But it says I don't have the 2025 and 2026, and it says nothing about 2024. So that all depends upon how precise it is with its own language. Just because it doesn't mention 2024 Is it a mistake, or really is it hiding something? There are a few ways to look at it, and one of them is, yes, I think that my interlocutor, my companion that I'm talking, is extremely precise with the language, and the fact that he doesn't mention 24 actually tells me something very important. I need to figure out. And another way is not to say that. Again, that assumes that I'm following my own approach. My own approach is believe that people are very smart and understand what is it that they are saying when they are saying something that doesn't make sense to me or that goes against my grain. Let's keep reading. For the most current and accurate population figures, I would recommend going right there. Yeah, that makes sense. Why didn't they do it? That's another question. Now, can you explicitly ask to estimate for 2025? Yes, of course you can. And again, that behavior changes. I'm copying this, except that I want that to be a question to it. And it says, yes, I can estimate. Okay, and then ways to estimate. But so that's what you're trying to do, is trying to figure out what's inside the box. All right. So you see, that's a very interesting question, especially for people who are philosophically minded. And if I make any progress in that today, I mean this week, then I will show something interesting next time. But now we need to go back to this very interesting last course of Andrew A. And it is called Improving LLM Accuracy with Llama. So I have already put it into our repository, and I even think I can run it. So let's do that. That's the link. There is how to run for the first time. And the first time you just install and let's look at that real quick. You create a virtual environment for just that one lab, because by now we have so many that they will come into conflict. So we go into this directory. Go into this repository, which I already cloned, and ES, and it is all AI labs. Okay, so in here, according to the instruction, the very first thing I should go into this folder. Okay, so let's do it. 46 folder. And over there, do all the preparation. But I already did that preparation. So all I need to do is run it. I run it for you. Also, you need to get a key. So for that, you need simply to find out which key you need. It's Llama OpenAI, or I think Nami9, they call it. And I did it already. So now I can go to the second file, which says how to run it the next time, right here. So I go back here, and the next time you run it, you go into this, and should be 46, not 45, and do the Jupyter Lab. Let's do it. Let's do it. And it is here. So what you need to do is source 46, and then what? Bin activate. And now you are in the right environment. After that, you can open Jupyter Lab. I didn't spell it right. Now I did spell it right, and it should open. There it opens. So now it is very interesting. That doesn't really tell me what it is. So let's try to open and see if it tells me inside. It does. So, first of all, the course is from 3 different authorities. Authority number 1 is Lemini. I think that's what it is. Okay, it turns out that Lemini is a little animal. It's all a play of words on llama. That's the company. And right away, very conveniently tells me, well, we start with 25 million. And it is commercialization of Llama. We all know that Llama is a large language model from Facebook, and their approach was do it in the open way. So you can download their model, you can run it, you can retrain it, and as I will tell you, that's quite a promising approach. That's number 1. Number 2, at Facebook itself, there is a person who is responsible for Llama development, and he's the second teacher in this course. And number 3 is Andrew Ng, who is, a special place. He promotes everyone, and they all write courses for him, and then he publishes them. That's the story. So, first of all, we see that they're making great progress. Their approach is to tell the world that we'll give you Llama model, you can run it locally, and I don't think there is anyone else as powerful and as smart as Llama that runs completely locally. So that gives you a lot of hope. There are supposedly very many people, now I would call them paranoid, but that's not a nice thing to say, who don't want your data to go anywhere else. And maybe it's not paranoid, maybe it's a necessity. So with Llama, you can keep your secret because Llama is downloaded to your computer and then doesn't talk back, supposedly, doesn't steal your secrets. That is the first lesson that they give you. They tell you how to run basic Llama. Now, it should work. Let's try it because I at least got the very first key. So what you do is here you supply this Lemini API key. You supply it to the code in a hidden way. This load.environment loads a little file which is called .env, which is not visible, and that's the best practice. So that gives me that key, which I obtained from Lemini as a company, and it worked so far. Now I can show the basics, what it can do. And what is the basics? Well, let's just talk to Llama. Let's prove the point that I can, and that's what I'm doing. I'm saying, you are a helpful assistant. Please prepare a little birthday card for my friend Andrew. I think they mean Andrew Inc. All right, so, well, that's instruction now. Let's see what it will do. That is a common function that sends this request to Llama, uses the key. So if I don't have the key working right, it should crash right here. And then you're sending it and watching the result. So that is just, do I have the connection or no? I didn't see the card come back. That doesn't bother me because it probably wrote some card. Besides, I'm going to test it once more. Say a joke. Okay, that's a joke. Why is the birthday cake in bad mood? Because it was feeling grumpy. And the common pattern is that AI is not a great joker at all, and it repeats a joke all the time, which is strange because in many other areas it varies the answer. This time it doesn't. How do I know it doesn't? Well, I can run it again. Give me the same joke. But it works. What's important is that you can use Llama just as you're using all other models, and it's very fast. It was very slow. Long time ago, it took 7 minutes to come up with an answer. And now it can do much faster, but it also can do much better. You can talk to SQL database. That's already a big deal because just 2 weeks maybe ago, I was running around showing in Microsoft Lab how you can talk to SQL and how smart it is and fixes your SQL and understands and it imitates a human database assistant. And now it's everywhere. So here you are. And one of my friends, by the way, implemented that for his work. So it's common sense, and yes, it creates a new SQL, and then it runs it. Now that is a belief where it didn't quite work in other labs, but at least here it works. What we're interested in, okay, you showed it. You showed us the Llama model, how easy it is to use it, and that it runs fast. But other models are just as good. Okay, I hear the promise. It's local. Very good. But really, what do you want to tell me? Here's what they want to tell you. Yes, you can create an SQL agent. And in here, that's where it breaks for me. I would connect it to a SQL-like database, and something doesn't work. But the idea is clear. We want to connect to the database, which is found right here. That's the database, and ask questions in a natural language. I want to ask it like, you're an MBA analyst with 15 years of experience of writing complex SQL query. Okay, that's a high-paying job. So here's write a SQL query to answer the following question. And the question will come. Okay, again, that's nothing great. We know Microsoft does it and other people do it. It shows that, yes, Llama is on the level of intelligence of other models. But what then? What then is lab number 3. So you can evaluate the quality. We are convinced we are going to use Llama, and we are going to use it. It's fast, it's intelligent. Can I now start working on enterprise project to improve the results and measure? That's more serious. Can I improve the quality of the answers? And is there a framework to verify that I'm getting better and better answer? Yes, that's where it is. But even that doesn't impress me as yet. What really impresses me is this, the last lesson here. So what we're going to do here is use some unique quality of Llama that other data models don't have, and that is I can download the whole thing, I can fine-tune it, I can embed additional knowledge straight into the data model, and that is not what other models do. So I'm not going to try it. Maybe next time I will, but we'll look at the promise first. So what the promise is, and I will spell it once again, is that you can get the whole model, add to it, train it some more, and they say, and it won't cost as much as you think. So I think 1% of the expected cost, that's what you will use. And yes, you have obtained a model, you have added knowledge, you have trained with that new knowledge, and the dream come true. That is called fine-tuning. Now, that is in contrast to the RAG architecture. So to understand the contrast, we'll have to go back a little bit, and there will be a lot of approaches here, and especially a picture here. And that picture illustrates the question. So whether it is any other database other than Llama or a reg with anything else, but in all these cases, they don't touch the model itself. The model comes to you. In the case of Weaviate that we looked at, yes, I think 2 weeks ago, it was LLM that was quite polyglot. It was knowledgeable in languages, 100 languages, and more precise in languages than a regular, let us say, ChatGPT. But in all these cases, the external knowledge is outside. My own knowledge, my private documents, they are here. They are in the reg, or they are in Weaviate, but they are in the outside database. And the first step is I consult the outside database. Then I find the related knowledge, and with that related knowledge, which I obtained by semantic search, with that related knowledge, I go into LLM. That is the classical RAG architecture. RAG stands for Retrieval Augmented Generation, and to me, it represents the basic paradox of combining semantic search, which is amazing technology, but it is 10 years old, with the large language models, which is 1 year old. It's not important how old it is, but LLM is a much, much bigger step than semantic search. And we're combining the two to get the answer. How do you like that? But there's nothing else. Nobody gives you the actual model to embed that knowledge into the model. Well, nobody other than Llama. Now, let's go back, look at Llama. What it gives you is a way to download the model, add your knowledge, fine-tune it for that, and then ask more questions. All right, so I think by now I have said it quite clearly that is a great promise of Llama. We saw that the first lessons show us that it works fast, it's smart enough, but the last one shows that yes, you can get download and you can embed the new knowledge straight into the model. Now, that is not universal. That is doing some specific things for you, but it is doing these specific things here. That's where they do fine-tuning in a reasonable way, a way that's different from all other approaches. Well, I think this is very important. I usually promise that next time it will work. Well, I will do this promise today also. I will say, John Schulman is already old news, but this is new. So what I will do is I will copy that, prepare for the next week, and that will be next week. And I will add one important thing. Let's put here. Okay. So does it really work or no? That depends on whether I'm successful to show that. But that's the promise. Okay, that is what I wanted to show. Now I will stop talking. It helps to stop talking and other people are talking. So I'm not muting myself, but I'm becoming silent. I stop the share screen. And I'm saying, guys, now your turn to ask questions. And not only that, anybody who wants to say their question instead of typing it, I will turn on their mic. Okay, Sharon, you asked a very, very good philosophical question. Do you need to define truth? Okay, I'll tell you what my approach to that is. I assume that if different people, and I'm only talking about smart people to start with, we'll talk about stupid people later, but to start with, we're talking about every person whose opinion is really worth something, and ideally, he should have or she should have no contradiction within their own system of views. How practical is that? How can you really find people who are that verified with their opinions that there are no internal contradictions? That's another question, but let's assume it's them. So if that's the case, if there are no contradictions, a specific point of view, then um, then it's valid. It's like a system of axioms that is okay. For example, you can think about there is a system of axioms which is called Euclid geometry, and then there is another system of axioms which is Lobachevsky geometry, and there is yet another third one. And they are proven to be non-contradictory because one represents an ideal, perfect no parallel lines intersecting. Point of view, it's a flat world. The other one represents a world on a sphere, which it can also exist. And the third one, it's inverted sphere. So you have at least 3 points of view, which are all correct. That's what I define as truth. Truth is non-contradictory system of views that can be shown practically with some certainty that it can answer questions. And if now we agree that there are 3 points of view on the same event, then I have 3 truths there. I hope I answer. So you say consistency versus accuracy. So consistency, and I would call it non-contradiction, no internal contradictions. Accuracy, that's relevancy, that's practical. What do I buy? Is it cucumbers or is it cabbages? That is important, but very practical question. It's not theoretical. So I hope I explained what I mean by truth. But thank you. That's a great question. And the reason I talk about these early thoughts is because they force me to formulate it better. I started talking to one guy, and I was watching him and immediately saw what's the wrong thing to say. How can I say it so that instead of satisfied smiles, I don't get hate views. Okay, so you need to follow. What I'm trying to do is understand everybody who's arguing with me and understand their point of view, not my point of view. All right. Now, Nicholas, not every consistent system is accurate, reflects reality. Yes, Nicholas, that's a great argument. And what you are saying is that there is an empirical validation. So if I understand your point of view correctly, there is reality. And that reality is only one. And that is where you can ascertain what is really truth. Okay? And you're free to argue if I don't understand you. But if there is a reality that is alternative, for example, in quantum mechanics, one approach is to assume that there are multiple realities in the world. They don't contradict. They, in fact, don't even talk to each other. So then there are two realities in which you can ascertain that they're accurate, empirical verified, but there are two. Okay, that's my favorite subject, but we cannot expand on it too much. So Nicholas, you can always write to me and maybe we can No, but thank you. I think that's a wonderful insight, and you give me a chance to understand your point of view. All right. So everyone, thank you very much. I really enjoyed that, and I hope to see you again in a week from now. So everyone, be well, enjoy your weekend and the whole year. 3 value truth, yes, at least 3, and theoretically much more. I have a theoretical number of 70, but I will not insist on that number. So thank you very much. Thank you, and more practical exercises promised next time. Thank you, everyone.